in 2013, and in barnyards all over China, there are ducks and pigs and chickens in close proximity. And that's actually where influenza originates. Now, viruses have gotten so good at mutating, but that is not what keeps the Centers for Disease Control up at night. What they worry about is something called a recombinant flu bug. Now, in just the last few weeks, a new very deadly animal flu called H7N9 has popped up. About 100 people are infected, a lot of them have died. And this is one that the CDC is really worried about.
The coronavirus is the family that SARS is a part of. So SARS stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. And in 2002 and 2003, there was an outbreak of a novel virus in China, in the Guangdong province. And it started out as a severe atypical pneumonia that was diagnosed basically as not having any known other viral component. Usually coronaviruses just give you a cold. What was unusual about SARS is that it was so lethal. And none of the other coronaviruses in humans actually cause such a lethal disease. And during the epidemic, there was around 8,000 people infected, around 800 people dead, so around 10% died from acute infection from the virus. There was a novel coronavirus that was first reported in September of 2012. It's now called human coronavirus, EMC. And what we know is that EMC, at the sequence level, it looks like two other known bat viruses that are bat coronaviruses. The parent virus, and the reason that's interesting is that the parent virus of SARS came from bats. And the worry is that this new human coronavirus, EMC, which is also from bats, is essentially the very early stages of what we saw for SARS. So this is one of those, this is what we saw where we have very early infections from animals to people. And if the virus accrues these mutations along the way that allows for very high transmissibility, then it becomes a much more problematic public health concern.
We had a barrel like this down in our basement filled with cans of food and water. When the nuclear attack came, we were supposed to go downstairs, hunker down, and eat out of that barrel. Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war.
In Saudi Arabia, the health ministry has reported 8 new cases of the Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus, bringing the total number to 491. The ministry says 2 of the people are in stable condition, while the other 4 are in critical condition and receiving treatment in ICU. 147 people in the country have died of the virus. 2 people who traveled to the U.S. from Saudi Arabia in early May have also been infected. 1 has fully recovered and been released from a hospital. The other is in stable condition in hospital. The coronavirus is a viral respiratory illness first reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012. It has spread from Gulf countries to North Africa, Southeast Asia, and Europe, killing more than 100 people and infecting hundreds of others.
The IRS has no reason, has no authority to force the American citizens to purchase any product that the government mandates for them to purchase.
And if you don't know, now you know, nigga.
The tax subsidies have been a burden that has been lifted. I am able to afford health insurance with my irregular income and not getting benefits from my employer.
The Affordable Care Act provides a cost-sharing subsidy designed to lower your out-of-pocket health care costs. You may qualify for a cost-sharing subsidy if you're lawfully present in the U.S., you aren't able to get employer or government-sponsored insurance, and you meet certain household income requirements. Although the health insurance marketplace offers a variety of plans, cost-sharing subsidies only apply to silver plans from the marketplace. When you apply for healthcare coverage through the marketplace, your cost-sharing subsidy will be calculated based on your income and family size. In general, the lower your household income, the higher your subsidy. The subsidy lowers the amount you're expected to pay for out-of-pocket healthcare costs. For example, a typical silver plan might cover 70% of your healthcare costs, while you're expected to pay the other 30% out of pocket. With a cost-sharing subsidy, the amount you're expected to pay is lowered, while the subsidy covers the difference. That means lower costs for things like co-payments, deductibles, co-insurance, and prescription drugs.
I'm here because this is one small step in what I believe is illegal, Obamacare. I get that we need reform, but this is not the way to have big government produce a huge mandate that does it, and it has so many flaws.
I often make the joke, although it's not such a joke, is that if we could spend half of the time in this country talking about why the middle class is collapsing as opposed to football or baseball, we would revolutionize what's going on in America. I want that discussion. I want to know why the rich get richer and everybody else gets poorer. I want to know why the United States is the only major country on earth that doesn't provide health care to all of their people. The only major country that doesn't have family and medical leave so that women can stay home with their kids when they have a baby. Those are the questions we should be discussing.
Mr. Trump.
Yes.
In the Democratic primary, Hillary Clinton has criticized Bernie Sanders' plan for single-payer government health care, noting it would require big, across-the-board tax increases for Americans. In doing so, she's doubling down on Obamacare, despite its persistent unpopularity. Mr. Trump, you have said you want to repeal Obamacare. You've also said, quote, everybody's got to be covered, adding, quote, the government's going to pay for it. Are you closer to Bernie Sanders' vision for health care than Hillary Clinton is?
I am. I think I'm closer to common sense. We are going to repeal Obamacare. We are going to repeal Obamacare. We are going to replace Obamacare with something so much better. And there are so many examples of it. And I will tell you, part of the reason we have some people laughing because you have insurance people that take care of everybody up here. I'm a self-funder. The only one they're not taking care of is me. We have our lines around each state. The insurance companies are getting rich on Obamacare. The insurance companies are getting rich on health care and health services and everything having to do with health. We're going to end that. We're going to take out the artificial boundaries, the artificial lines. We're going to get a plan where people compete, free enterprise, they compete so much better. In addition to that, you have the health care savings plans, which are excellent. What I do say is there will be a certain number of people that will be on the street dying. And as a Republican, I don't want that to happen. We're going to take care of people that are dying on the street because there will be a group of people that are not going to be able to even think in terms of private or anything else. And we're going to take care of those people. And I think everybody on this stage would have to agree, you're not going to let people die sitting in the middle of a street in any city in this country.
Welcome to the beginning of the end of Obamacare.
The White House is calling this a victory, claiming Obamacare was imploding under rising costs. But this image of overwhelmingly white, rich and powerful Republicans repealing existing healthcare laws may come back to haunt them. Donald Trump was relishing the occasion, still appearing incredulous he is president.
How am I doing? Am I doing okay? I'm president. Hey, I'm president. Can you believe it, right?
This is his first big legislative win, even if the bill must now face scrutiny in the Senate. And Trump said this was just the start.
We're going to finish it off, and we're going to go on to a lot of other things, and we are going to have a tremendous 4 years, and maybe even more importantly, we're going to have a tremendous 8 years.
How can you throw 24 million Americans off of health insurance and then give $200 billion in tax breaks to the top 2%?
Amazon is a huge company, but do you know just how huge it really is?
We start with amazing Amazon. Somewhere CEO Jeff Bezos is smiling.
It's one of only 2 U.S. companies to ever reach $1 trillion valuation.
No one in history has become as rich as quickly.
It's made Jeff Bezos the richest man in the world.
That is 100 million Prime subscribers globally.
And if you put those Prime subscribers in one country, it would be the 14th largest on the planet. The planet. But that massive company paid no federal income tax on more than $11 billion in profits in 2018. And somehow, they actually got a $129 million tax rebate.
Don't you look at me with baby doll eyes. You ain't no baby doll. Get shook. I know you hate the surprise, because you hate it all. I'm sucking when I'm sucking your blood. I got your heart and now I took it and I'm fucking it up. Pull it apart.
President Trump attacked Amazon on Twitter today, saying that the company, quote, pays little or no taxes to state and local governments. Well, Mr. Trump has gone after Amazon before in the past. He suggested that the United States Postal Service charge it more. He also suggested reining them in with antitrust laws. Amazon is owned by Jeff Bezos, who also owns the Washington Post, another frequent target of the president.
It was a war between the exes. Now it's a war between the sexes.
The New York Times published 3 pages of your 1995 tax returns. They show you claimed a $916 million loss, which means you could have avoided paying personal federal income taxes for years. You've said you pay state taxes, employee taxes, real estate taxes, property taxes. You have not answered, though, a simple question. Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes for years?
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. Her donors took massive tax write-offs.
So have
a
you
lot
not
of
paid
my
personal federal income tax?
A lot of my write-off was depreciation and other things that Hillary, as a senator, allowed, and she'll always allow it because the people that give her all this money, they want it. That's why. See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president. See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president. See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president.
Real change never takes place from the top on down, but always from the bottom on up.
Bernie Sanders' healthcare for all idea is gaining steam.
Free tuition, free college tuition, free tuition champion, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders added, the greatest threat to national security is climate change.
The future of our planet is at stake.
Sanders taking on Amazon.
Bernie Sanders has been consistent hammering about income inequality.
Nobody in America works 40 hours a week, should be living in poverty. So our economy is rigged. We have a campaign finance system which is corrupt.
Sanders leading the charge to stop war against Yemen.
The first time ever the Senate has voted to end an unauthorized war.
The fight against injustice has been the work of his life.
Jobs and education, not jails and incarceration.
We are not going to retreat on women's rights.
Sanders pushing a bold agenda that includes protecting DACA recipients and comprehensive immigration reform.
You don't rip little children away from the arms of their mother.
A major announcement from Amazon. Amazon will raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. 350,000 workers.
Thousands of workers at Disney World will get raises.
It's a victory for Bernie Sanders.
It's a victory for all workers. Brothers and sisters, we have a lot of work in front of us. If we are prepared to stand together, there is no end to what the great people of our nation can accomplish.
Before I start getting sentimental, I'm gonna have to say my exes.
Charlottesville, Virginia is home to the author of one of the great documents in human history. We know it by heart. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
We've heard it so often, it's almost a cliche, but it's who we
You
are.
guys can sit in the edge or what? I don't want you to have to stand all along, but it's up to you. By the way, he gave me permission to touch him. All right? I'm sorry to take so long, guys, but everyone knows I like kids better than people.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Hansen. New York City's medical examiner ruled Jeffrey Epstein's death was a suicide and that he died by hanging himself in his jail cell. Epstein was found dead last Saturday at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. He was awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls. Epstein had been placed on suicide watch in July after an earlier suicide attempt, but was not on it when he killed himself.
This is how it feels. As we go on, we remember all the times we had together. And as our lives change from whatever.
早上就有44例吧，有11例重症，没这么紧张。
哦，
不像
那
沙士啊，相当于传染性没有相当于紧张。
那您还是对政府的政策比较放心的是吧？
哎。
Things that I say when you don't wanna listen. Things that you say when I make bad decisions. Things that we do by the sink in my kitchen.
The phenomenon seemed to be worldwide. A new decade had been ushered in with a sense of hopeful optimism. Deep down, we all knew that this man-made milestone wouldn't be the answer to everything wrong with the world. It wouldn't stop us, as people, such a flawed species, from tearing ourselves apart, simply because we remain so focused on defending the spiteful, inhumane actions of the proud people who once stood in our place. It's no stretch to say that every single scrap of suffering in the world could be eradicated by the time the next significant milestone comes to pass, but instead of building toward a beautifully tailored world, the likes of which would make future generations honored to feel part of, we find ourselves foolishly obliged to stubbornly uphold the mistakes of the past. When it came to our collective facade of universal positivity, it just would have been nice for it to last more than 3 fucking days.
Morning and welcome to Morning Joe on this Friday, January the 3rd. Let's get right to the significant escalation of already heightened tensions with Iran. Now, just days after insisting he doesn't want war with Iran, American officials say President Donald Trump authorized a drone strike at Baghdad International Airport last night that, of course, killed Iran's top general.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The lockdown in China is expanding tonight as that country, the epicenter of the outbreak of a potentially deadly virus, tries to limit its spread around the world. The situation is evolving fast, but here are the numbers we know right now. Roughly 35 million people in 12 cities in China are under travel bans tonight. Chinese officials now say there are more than 1,000 confirmed cases of the new coronavirus in that country, and at least 41 people have died. And more than 8,000 are reported to be under observation. And look at this. Hundreds of construction crews are working around the clock to build a new hospital in Wuhan, where the virus was first detected. And it will be just for patients who are ill with the virus. The first cases are now confirmed in Europe. Officials in France say 3 people are ill. They had traveled to China. That means there are now confirmed cases in 9 countries, though the vast majority are still in China. In the U.S., there is now a second confirmed case, a woman in Chicago who returned from Wuhan on January 13th. Officials say she did not show symptoms on the flight but became ill days later. It's still not clear when people become contagious, and China is taking more drastic steps tonight, canceling all major public events, even closing the Forbidden City in Beijing.